Hope all is well. Hope you've been blessed and hope you've had a good March. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but we truly do thank you and for waking up this morning and joining us for the Mastermind call with the Dream Makers Network. For you, if you're on the call for the first time, good morning to you. My name is Byron Deese, originally from Sanford, Florida, and live here in Hanover, Maryland, and just thankful to have you on the line with us and just to have this opportunity to connect with you for the purpose of personal development. And if you're on the call for the first time, you could be wondering, what is this all about? I thought this was a networking call. I thought I was going to pass my business card, my virtual business card around. And listen, we're excited to get a chance to learn more about you and your goals, your business, your organizations, your ministries, whatever it is you're working on. We're excited to do that, but we wanted to take a second. And for this call is always an opportunity to just take a second in the busy rat race that we go in, that we're involved in all the things that keep us busy, whether it be work, business, community, whatever you're doing that's at the top of your brain. We try to interrupt that just for an hour or two to have a conversation about what it is that you're here to do and why, and to get centered. Bring yourself back to really focusing on the work and the reasons for the work. Having given yourself an opportunity to collectively reflect on the things that matter to you. And if you are on message, that's what this call is about. And I tell you, we've been doing this call now. In August, it'll be 9 years. I laugh because seems like we had just gotten started a couple of weeks ago during the summertime, flipping burgers, me and Paz Morris and Dwayne Mitchell, just flipping burgers and talking about life, talking about what was next, talking about what it is we're trying to accomplish, and young families and, and just trying to look into the future. But at the same time, it was clear, that while we were flipping burgers on my old deck at the other house, we were, I can tell you, it was probably a bit of, I don't want to say fear, but definitely there was a sense of some anxiousness associated with our conversations. And it's the factor of uncertainty, but wanting to get ahead of it, wanting to, and not just kind of wallow in uncertainty. And because if you do that, then it's a wrap, because worry, doubt, fear, all those things jump in and take so many people out of the game. And we didn't want that to happen. So we were just sharing, and it just became a like-minded conversation. It continued. And ultimately we were, started reading books together and really just connecting on a singular purpose, a singular objective. Every time we talk, are we growing? How are we growing? What are we doing? It's almost like, what's the recipe here? And then more people started to connect with us. And we wanted to do it during a time where you knew you were talking to people who were dead serious. Folks who were dead serious about taking their life from where it is today to where they believe their life was headed. And what are the reasons behind that? What's the impetus of this new direction that you've decided is your objective? And so, 8.5, 9 years later, we're still doing that. And you guys are plugging in and participating in this call. And so I'm just thankful for each of you, and it's when we can have that cohesive conversation, that each of us out doing the things that we care about in the community, at home, in our businesses. That's what this is about, to make sure that we, when it just seems like you start asking yourself, why am I doing this again? what am I doing? I could be doing something else. You get, this call is really just to help us get back on message and stay on message. And so I'm thankful to each of you for joining in and connecting with us, and all of you who've been with us for those that, throughout these years. Could not, if it wasn't for you, I'd just be sitting here talking to myself or talking to those guys. And so thank you so much for the opportunity to connect and share. And so we look forward to hearing from you on today's call. Well, how was your March? That's the big question here. We're at the end of March now, and on our last call, we talked about to tell the truth about what it is that you really want, and what does that, how does that really play into, your day-to-day life. And if you start taking a clean look at what it is that you say you truly want, but your actions don't reflect that that's where you're going, that's a problem. So it's better to call it out now than to, continue doing that and then find yourself 5, 10, 15 years into the future like, why didn't anybody stop me? Why didn't anybody stop me a long time ago when I kept saying that I wanted to do this? I wanted to go north, but I was digging south, and it's important to have that conversation, to ask that question, what do you really want? And so I talked on the last call just a little bit about the epiphany that I had as I continued to really just have those prayers and talking to God about my true ambitions, my true, what I believe, all those things that God has kind of placed in my spirit to do, and to those directions to take. And you start just doing them without a real motivated push. And I still had this long picture in my brain, but then ultimately, I realized, God said, well, just take a look at what you're doing. And for me, it came through, preparing to do my taxes and just looking at where the money is going and this and that and the other. And I was like, yikes. Like, I've been sitting here talking about, I really want to be a philanthropist, and so at some point in my brain, it's like this millionaire who gives away money, to the causes that matter to him or her. And I'm doing my taxes, and I started looking at where's my money going. And I realized over 32% of my money was going to organizations, to nonprofit organizations. And when I looked at it, well, which nonprofits are these? Am I still moving the needle toward what it is I believe I'm here to do? And I said, yeah, these are the organizations. These are the ones. They're doing the work that I believe in. They're doing the work of the things that matter to me, and the ways that I believe in creating progress. These are the organizations. And so the light bulb smacked me it went off in the light, and it just all hit me over the head. I was just like, wow, like, this is it. I'm doing it. Doesn't matter that I'm not a multi-millionaire. So even though I would like to be a multi-millionaire, it doesn't matter, because the causes, the people, the issues, the opportunities are the things that I personally care about. And if I had a whole bunch of money, I would support it. But why not support it now? And that was the thing that really just gave me so much power in my spirit to know that it's happening now. And it really just changed my outlook, because if I don't have to wait anymore. That was the thing that hit me, was that I don't have to wait. It's happening right now. So just continue to do the work, and so that was really the objective there. And we also talked a little bit about these advisors that we have. And who do we listen to? Who do you have as part of your advisory team, dead or alive? People who bring counsel to you, people who've done and are doing what it is that you believe is important in this life. Who are those people? And why are they advisors to you? When they share with you, when you read their books, or reflect on their life and you recollect those things that they did, what are you pulling from those experiences? How is it making you better, making you stronger? And I think it's important to have that. A lot of times we can feel like we're on our own islands, that we're the only ones we can talk to about the things that we want. Now, granted, I mean, some of these people, and I went there. I've gone through the exercise of, getting these 8x10 pictures and framing them and being able to come downstairs and, lay them out and connect with these people. Some people I've met and have known. Others I've only known them through their books or through their history and their stories. But for me, it's just personally, it's just a necessary thing for me, because the worst thing you want to be, the worst situation you want to be in, at least for me personally, is just to feel isolated and alone in my own, activities and not being able to have that communication. That's why I mentioned, in my own personal spiritual life, that I just try to talk to God and communicate as often as possible. Just don't want to feel left out here, and that's just my own thing, but we all have our own ways of recharging and finding our own power in the middle of chaos and change and things that can easily throw us off. And so I wanted to take a second and open up the call to anybody who would like to talk a little bit about, one, how has your March, what's been going on this month, and the good, the bad, the ugly. If you feel willing to share that on the network, and then and also, who are those people that you connect with that are, like I said, if they hear it now and you're able to engage with them, or if it's people who have passed away and maybe you knew them, maybe you've never met them, but you are able to still connect and listen and hear through their books or through just their life story and things. I would love to hear who those people are and why they're important to you and your progress. So we'll take a second. Let's take a second and open up the call now for you guys to share and bring us up to speed on where things are here in the end of this month of March. So we'll open up the call now.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'll start off first because I think mine is the shortest one. As far as my March, I'm nowhere where I needed to be. Basically, after the car accident, in between therapy and all the medication, I spent all of my time between doing therapy, then coming home, and the medication just had me whereas I was just, in bed a lot of the time. And I wasn't really tuned in to any of my mentors that I normally listen to. But as we come towards the end of March, and I noticed what has started to really give me energy really revolves around a nonprofit. And I wrote my first grant for a girlfriend of mine and her nonprofit. And that really is what energized me versus, I wasn't doing anything, with my business, but letting some of the residuals come in.
Yeah.
But I didn't really capitalize and pivot on what I could have because, as we know, I'm all zoomed out. And, you tell me another Zoom meeting here, another Zoom meeting there, and I'm just not with it. But what inspired me is the possibilities with these grants and with this new nonprofit me and my girlfriend had started. One of the game plans was to develop a program to educate and get our incarcerated back into the workforce. There's a lot of money out there But the difficulty, especially with a new nonprofit starting out, and of course, there was no way we could get that grant, but it still inspired me just in the research and trying to find the numbers and seeing how to do some things. And that's, that's now, because I could not even sit at a computer for a long time. I would get, nauseous. But I see what, does inspire me and does invigorate me. And little by little, I'm getting my groove back. And I see where my focus needs to be as far as in the nonprofit sector. Because I have an opportunity to, goal is looking at, we're in the process of, we want to develop an apprenticeship program. A lot of companies don't necessarily have them, but the government will pay money for these programs. Now, we have the program kind of written out, but it costs like $25,000 to get a program accredited and validated. So that's where, that's the main target, the main focus is getting our program validated. And, we can take it, like Maryland Live, we pitched it to them. They have a chef who wants to lead a culinary program. But again, we have to get our apprenticeship program accredited. So little by little, we have to establish fiscal responsibility. We have people that we can work with because of things that we've been doing. But now it's time to put the pedal to the metal. And go out there and get this money to, again, educate our incarcerated and educate those individuals, starting out within the county who need employment and need good employment with this apprenticeship. So that's what I see to be my focus and lighting a fire underneath me, and that's where I'm at.
Well, I tell you, but what's interesting about that, I'm glad you highlighted the fact that, hey, listen, I have been kind of, in a stale moment. I've been in a funk, and here's why, and here's where it started. But that you were able to quickly highlight what has given you energy, what has given you power. And that's the blessing of this, is when we're able to say, what I usually do to keep me fired up is this, that, and the other, but I've been off. And it's just taken away. And I would say, especially when it comes to the reentry programs, a couple, especially if and it's a couple ways, you can kind of think about how you want to play in that space, because it's one to create your own reentry program and kind of check all the boxes necessary to do that. It's another thing also to be a supporter of folks who are coming back into society from being incarcerated, and and similar to how we support and provide scholarships for a lot of students who are looking to go to college. We can do the same thing and provide, financial and just professional assistance to many of these folks. Like, for instance, in Baltimore, there's a couple programs that are really powerful programs that are doing a lot of the work, but they still need kind of that after they've completed received a certificate and a program and pass a certain milestone, to be able to stay with those folks and support them over time and be there for them. There's a program called the Center for Urban Families. Take a look at this organization, and they're doing just some great work in this, and not just in Baltimore, but throughout the region, definitely throughout the state of Maryland. And then there's another program actually that is called Aim to Be More, which is also part of the state's attorney's office. And they are really focusing on those nonviolent offenders and helping them throughout, to make sure they can clean their record, but at the same time connect them with programs similar to what you've mentioned, to just kind of keep them and guide them into the life that they are looking to pursue. And so So yeah, I can send you some of those websites directly, and if you want to look into it, just see what it's all about, and maybe there may be some connectivity there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely do that.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Let's open up the call. Anybody else want to take a second and share about what you've been working on and talk a little bit about the advisors or anything that's on your mind right now? We'll take a second and open up the call now.
Okay, y'all better talk before I start making my pitch for him to start donating to my my nonprofit.
Hey, you should go ahead and make the pitch. Make it. Make the pitch. Make the pitch. That's right. You need to let us know how we can support. We want to support. So let us know how we can support. You got a website. We'll send it to everybody, so everybody can drop a couple dollars into it and help fund the whole objective. So yeah, make the pitch.
I sure will. As I was stating, our nonprofit is our community connections, and we've basically been a nonprofit technically in the background for about 3 years. But with both of us, working in the government and things of that nature, there was some conflict, or they could be presented some conflict, especially when you're talking about money and things of that nature. So as of, of course, I'm already retired. And my girlfriend, she just retired from the government this December. So that's why we're able to go full force with it. One of our existing programs is during the Thanksgiving time frame, we have given away over like 200 turkeys to needed families. And we acquired donations. NBC4 was the main sponsor for that. So that's a continued program that we want to do. A secondary program that we do annually was Suits to Vet. And we have collected, through over the time, we've collected an entire wardrobe and for free, whether they be homeless veterans or whatever, we dress them so we can be able to put them back into the workforce. In addition, providing them training and how to get their disability claims, medical claims. So one of the key things is not knowing the resources that are out there. They're out there, but they're not all in one stop. So I was asked to be part of the Maryland Veterans Commission most recently to address some of these problems. And what I noticed is we have a commission, but they're not getting anything done. They're not diverse. I was asked because they didn't have any black females.
Yeah.
And they had some old white males and a black male. They would throw out these things. Okay, we need to do this. We need to do that. But they did not delegate authority. And every month they just had some ideas. So I turned it down. I said, I can't work with y'all because I'm coming in moving and shaking. Y'all gonna get mad. I want to get some things done. So I work on outside volunteers. I can't be part of another Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
We're not moving forward.
Yeah.
So, so what we're trying to do is there are resources out there, but we need a one-stop shop. Whereas on the sideline, a veteran can contact me or my girlfriend, and we can do the legwork for them. But again, time consuming, and we're doing things out of our pocket. Yeah. So we just want to, formulate that. Even with the Veterans Pursuit, we're here in Maryland, but we ended up giving a lot of stuff to the DC program, so the Maryland people just didn't come out.
Let me ask you a couple quick questions. One. What did you mention a website? Is there a website?
Well, yeah, we're gonna put our site back up because again, we were working on the profit side.
Okay, got it. Okay.
We have a for-profit business. And, when you retire not working, you do some things you need support.
Yeah.
Can we say that sometimes? So as far as the website for that, we took our nonprofit website down. Because again, the conflict, and you weren't taking any money could have donated clothes, and they could have donated anything else, but we weren't taking, financial.
Gotcha.
So we want to have all the best, in a row.
And then the other thing I want to, that makes sense. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that at my church alone, I would say probably half of the brothers at my church and sisters have been in the military and have some type of, or involved in some type of way in some of the programs that you've mentioned. Do you have any partnerships with the local churches on this?
Well, yes, actually, we have a partnership with KCC, which is in the nonprofit sector. And my key thing with them in that partnership is they can be the lead on some projects, but until they show me how they're fiscally responsible, it's difficult for me to go out for large venues. Because I know I can write it up, but you have to show me what you've done, and you also have to have key people with key skill sets in place to get it done. So that's just one church, and we have a partnership with the Christian College as well, to collaborate.
Okay.
But, again, I'm definitely open and would like to sit down with personnel from your organization, and again, we show them what we're doing, because that's the key since we're starting out with the new nonprofit is the collaboration.
That's right.
They want to see these organizations want to see some past performance.
Yeah.
Or who you're working with, and that's how I was able to get the grant for my girlfriend because whom she was in collaboration with. So I'm definitely passing you all that info.
Well, I tell you what, because I know you don't live too far, so actually you should. I'm going to send you the address to my church, because today we're actually having a fish fry at the church, so you can come by and kind of and get you some fish, but also connect with some folks and a lot. I think you'll find a lot of synergy there, because these are people who've done similar work, or at least have in the past have a keen interest in this, and even if again it may just be someone who's willing to some ministries who may not be a part of the programming as far as partnering, but want to give and want to be a financial support to the organization, and that's partnering too. So I'm going to say the information.
Right. So what we would like to do with the church would probably be our veteran stand down, where we would bring in whether the homeless and basically clean them up, have a mobile shower, feed them, clothe them, because they're grants out there for that. And again, we need a little more to do that. So that's something great we can do with the church.
Okay, all right. Well, you get it. I'm more than happy to make that connection, because I think this is there are a lot of people who are looking, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, especially as it relates to folks who have retired. And some of them are recently retired, say within the past 10 years, and looking to stay engaged, and something that still reflects their energy and interest. So yeah, I'm after the call here today, I'll send you some info. Come on out and fellowship with us, and I'm sure you're gonna meet some people. I mean, I know everything is kind of social distance right now, but it's an opportunity to communicate and share with some folks who I'm sure would be interested.
Great, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yep. No, that'll be good. All right, maybe we created a little time and folks got their coffee and ready to kind of rap about this past month. So I'm gonna take another second. We'll open up the call now to anybody who'd like to jump in and talk a little bit about what they've been working on. And I'm really, I gotta be honest, I am very interested to hear who do we identify as our advisors, and if that's something that you've ever even attempted, and this is something that I think is very important as it relates to the personal development process. And so if there are some examples of folks who have done different things and has a current approach that's working for them, we'd love to hear it. So let's take a second to open up the call now. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Whew.
Oh, you out there getting your walk on? You out there?
Oh, no, I'm not walking, sir.
Oh, you running?
I'm walking now. I had to stop him. I had to stop to walk.
Okay. That brother out there getting his Rocky on. You climbing the steps?
Okay, so I'm going to give you my people. Rocky and Apollo are not one of them. However, the people are so important in your imagination and how you work, right?
Yeah.
I definitely be out here on my Michael P. Jordan. So I think I am.
Okay.
I'm out here. I'm Michael P. Jordan all day. I'm running around with my hood on. I don't care what, you know. Outside, people looking at me. I'm like, yeah, I'm about to go preach this young brother. This is in my mind. So,
Mike, did you say Michael P. Jordan?
I'm sorry,
No, okay. I'm like, okay.
whatever it is, I'm looking like you're in my mind. That's who I am. Michael Jordan, Michael P. all the Jordans.
Yeah, both of the Jordans. You gotta get both of them Jordans in there, man. That's what I'm talking about.
That's funny. It's like part of the whole, choosing your advisors thing.
Yeah.
Step one, you choose them, and then obviously step two, you got to work your imagination to kind of think and spend time with them and start to think, well, what would they do?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of really, creating an advisor or having an advisor, or having those mentors. Some of them actually, obviously, you can call if you have a mentor or somebody you know. Mm-hmm. But then you got the people who may not be living, or maybe you may not have access to, who you have to research. And then when you research it, you find that, wow, in this situation that I'm in, what would President Obama do?
Yeah.
How would he react in this situation when I'm being attacked? So he would be calm. He would react with intelligence. And you pick those thoughts, you pick those qualities, but you have to be able to use your imagination. You just can't look at them like fans, like, oh yeah, I really like what that guy did and be a big fan of him, and not use them as mentors, even if it's in your imagination. So, two things that have, since we jumped on that, then I did create a list, and I've had a list for a while. We've been doing this exercise, so I've been going around in circles with it. So I do have a list. President Obama is definitely on it. Mm-hmm. I tried to go back and so I tried to do it like, historically, what I did was I tried to pull people that I admired, but also could relate to in some way.
Okay.
That it would make it easier for me to insert my thoughts into their mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just my philosophy behind it, right? So I went back in time. You and I had the conversation about, you need to go back a little bit, man. All these people you're watching are, current people. Go back in time. So I went back in time and I started studying people, and I looked at Booker T and I looked at a few other brothers, Carver. I said, you know what? I'm a Baltimore guy. I'm going with Frederick Douglass. Oh. I know Frederick Douglass. I know who he is. And I'm aware of him, but I haven't taken a deep dive on his life. So that's been 2 months worth of deep dive, and he's definitely on the list. Yeah. Now. Yeah. Guy who, I literally one of those days ran past his old house, like, he stayed on Ann Street, in Fells Point.
That's right.
I'm like, wow, he was a slave here. Here I am, 200 years later, walking past, or running past, or whatever, going past, and I got to feel the energy and just the whole thing. So Frederick Douglass is definitely on the list. Wow. Barack is on the list. Malcolm has always been on the list. Mm-hmm. So, as far as that, you see all these guys are light-skinned black men, right? You know what I'm saying? People think Fred was dark, but he wasn't. He was a mulatto. He was described as a light, tall black man. Yeah, a lighter black man. It could be brown, but he wasn't depicted the same way you see in those black and white. His color was different. Yeah. Back then they didn't have that business, but the newer stuff when they started to do it, he was lighter than seen him, you know what I'm saying? So,
so you're trying to say he's your complexion is what you're trying to say. Y'all about the same complexion is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So when you see me, you see Frederick Gibson, which is what I'm saying. Minus the hair.
Oh, now I see. Now I get why you growing the beard out like it's all scruffy and all. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I see what you got. The little salt and pepper going like somebody granddaddy out here. You know.
Right. You got it. The streak is great. You know, I'm ready. At the time, and I don't want to have a full-blown Frederick Douglass talk, but he's one of the people that I'm listening to now. Who he was to the United States was the Barack Obama of that time as far as being famous. If you mix Barack Obama, Barack, and anybody else that you think, and maybe even, I wouldn't say Oprah because she's in her own category in the female, but you get what I'm saying? Like, he's that big to the United States. Any move he made meant something for black and white people. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really get it. So once I started looking into who he was, I was like, wow, I got to put him on the list. He was a runaway slave.
Runaway slave.
So I put him on the list. Yeah, he definitely ran away. Ran away from Baltimore.
Yep.
So another one is obviously Malcolm, who's I keep there for his diligence and his power and his strength and his not necessarily the way he speaks, because that's popular. His discipline was Michael Jordan-esque.
Yeah.
Meaning that he actually abided by all the rules that they laid out. It's one of the reasons why they had an issue, why they split. Because he was only eating once a day. He was, traveling and building and really adhering and praying and doing all the things and not cursing and not he wasn't like sliding.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a contradiction. So the words that he speaks are words of a man that's not contradicted. Mm-hmm. Even if some of the stuff he said might not have been, on point, or some of his beliefs might have been skewed due to the fact that he might not have been following the right people at the time.
That's right.
However, his discipline and his power came from his discipline and his conviction. So, I mean, yeah.
And his ability to his righteousness to his faith made him say, you know what, I can't stick around. When he realized there was an issue.
Correct.
And that was sacrificial. I mean, at that point, once he just made that move, it was sacrificial, so yeah.
I'm willing to die for this.
Yeah.
Because I have my conviction. So yeah, if I have a quality like that, I make a decision on something. But and to be something small, like I'm gonna work out, 5 to 6 times a week. I'm gonna run. I'm gonna do it in the cold. And I'm gonna do it here.
Yeah.
Or die.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this or die. People are really willing to, and I think people myself would really have that level of conviction. So I draw on the strength of people like that are that convicted when I want to make decisions. Stick to them.
Well,
it's easy to talk, but it's not easy to do.
I remember one time in the past you mentioned Will Smith, and Will Smith has definitely said that one thing. He was like, "Listen, I'm gonna give you an example of my level of discipline. I'm willing to die on the treadmill." Like he was like, "I'm not gonna let you beat me on the treadmill." I was like, "Really, Will? Is that serious?" Like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I mean, wow. Like, okay, but he was like, "You're not gonna beat me on the treadmill. I don't care who you are, what athlete, professional." I'm like, yikes. But I think he was just trying to explain. I'm so committed to what it is I put my mind to that it's either that or death kind of thing. I'm like, okay. So,
right. And if you exist from that, or for all purposes, if we're taking a concept or an idea that we're trying to accomplish, and then we can draw people like that, and your imaginary counsel sitting there, and you sitting around the table with them, and you say, "All right, I want to do that," and I look across the table and I see Malcolm. Malcolm said, "You ready to die for this?" And I look over and I see Will.
Yep.
Will was like, "I will die on the treadmill."
Yep.
He definitely got willing to die for this.
Yep.
And I look and I say, "Well, okay, guys, maybe I should rethink this because I'm not willing to die for it. We'll get rid of it then. Let's do something that we're willing to die for." So
that's the imagination.
Correct. And that's really, and I'm sure you'll talk about it later. That's really the point of having the council. Like I said before, it's the imagination piece.
Yeah.
So Will is on there as well. It's good. He's alive. And Barack. One day I'm sure I'll be in contact with him and we'll talk, and I'll be able to explain to him that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The other side, on the business side, I got Henry Ford,
okay,
and Bezos.
Henry
and Bezos. And it was tough and I waffled. I know, right? Crazy. Yeah, I waffled between Bezos and Sam Walton, and then F.W. Woolworth. And really because of their understanding of people and products and how to get. I mean, they were the best people alive at getting a product to people and creating a situation where people wanted only to use their product or service. Not necessarily what the service is, but their understanding of people and consumers, and then getting stuff to them in the right way. And then Rockefeller as well, John, the senior, not the junior.
Yeah.
Because of his ability to know that too, but also he was so strict financially, which is one of the real reasons why his fortune, still lives on.
Yeah.
And he did the same thing, but he just had a different idea about his money and what had happened with every penny. And when I read all that, and when I really studied him, I'm like, I gotta apply some of this stuff to my life. And I need a person like that. I need these guys sitting around when I'm talking about how can I, reach the numbers and hit these numbers that I want to hit. Well, have you been doing this? What's your idea around that? Have you been keeping a strict account? Not the way they talk back then.
Strict account, yeah.
Marketing, keeping strict account.
Yeah.
Account, what does that mean? It means everything that comes in and out, every single penny. And when you're making, I can only imagine these guys with no computers, not even a typewriter or anything like that. These big ledger books, full of little numbers, and stuff was like $1, 5 cents. And meanwhile, you made, $1 million that month in 15 cents, 25 cents, 35 cents, 50 cents, $5, $7, $1 million in a month. And I kept 50 count of that.
Wow.
John D. Then I had the one challenge that you had as far as finding a female. I haven't locked that in. I was looking at Maya Angelou. And then, because you need some strength, some real soul.
Yeah.
Somebody right at the heart who you can talk to, and they know how to operate with their heart, and can see people and situations through a intelligent but also through a feeling lens. And a lot of masculine people, people who are heavy on masculine, male or female, don't have that. And I'm probably one of them. Don't have that feeling lens, like so crystal that you can see into people's souls and hearts for whatever reason, whether you want to affect them, affect change for them, or whether you want to do business with them, or whether you want to, see if they're going to be someone you can get some with, or someone you want to spend some of your precious commodity time with, or a family member or whatever, like that. So I need somebody in the heart thing. So I was looking at Maya Angelou, obvious choices, Oprah, and I'm like, I just didn't want to do the obvious choice. Put somebody on the list that I do have to research and might be a little, has a different line. And then on top of that, Maya Angelou was supposed to be Oprah's mentor. Why not go?
Exactly. Yeah.
So we got them all about wrapped up. Then it's that hot. And then I got a guy who's alive now, who's my faraway attitude / workout / looks like / guy named David Goggins.
Okay.
David Goggins. You look him up. I mean, he's current now. He's current. I could make 3 phone calls and get to a publicist or something like that.
Yeah.
For 20,000, I'm sure. We could have people on the call or something like that. I'm being facetious, but
no, that's true.
Around that, he's in that realm.
Yeah.
But this man is official, and I read his memoir, and he's an ex-Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, something else. Can't remember what the other thing was. Basically, he's done some things that nobody else in military history has done. And the hardest trials in the world. He runs 100 miles. He runs these 200-mile things, ultra marathons, and he is very curt. He's very straight to the point. He uses the Queen's English with a military aggressiveness that you would know that it's uncomfortable, but his attitude is something that, and his I don't care, is something that I found that touched me, that I got to have more of what this guy has, or not caring. And being willing to put his body, he does it through physical activity, to kind of just meditation. Spiritually, I wanted to go with Christ, but I know this is going to sound blasphemous. Don't be mad at me. He just didn't fit right with me when I went to go look. Because, and to be honest with you, not like that I didn't quite feel worthy in my imagination to conceptualize, what Christ would be doing at the green table.
Interesting.
I didn't have the imagination for that. I didn't feel worthy of that. Yeah, I'm working on that, but right now I'm not at that level. So I don't consider myself a guy. I just consider myself a dude. So I fell back to Paul.
There you go.
I fell back to Paul. Yeah, so I needed an intermediary just to kind of work with from his life and how he dealt with the adversity to put together the writings and pushing along at a time when it was pretty tough. So,
you unpacked a lot in there, brother. Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got. I got one more. I got 2. I got 1 or 2 more I need to work with. But all these people are people that, and the last piece of it, I did study and went back to Napoleon Hill's book to see how he did it, like what his thoughts were. And he talked about it twice. He talked about the law of success, and obviously talked about it in Think and Grow Rich. Well, you break down the technique, and that's what I went to. The technique of really putting the people around the table and imagining them, and it's supposed to be a process. You're supposed to take your half hour or 20 minutes out of the day, sit down, and imagine them around the table, and then start to bring your issues to this round table of your imaginary advisor. So I haven't been working on that yet, but this month I'll carve out some time and go to that. So there you go with my people. And another military person too, was general, but I didn't. So there we go.
Yeah, brother, you unpacked that one. You unpacked that one. I know. Yeah. No, that listen, man. That was really good. That was really good, because I think in the part that I didn't mention, I'm glad you did, is you have to have real, active, vivid, on purpose imagination to be able to make it meaningful to you, to communicate with people who aren't there with you physically. And I would say even with the people who you do have access to, and this is something that I do, I'm thankful I have a mentor here in Baltimore that I literally on purpose ask him questions about things that he wouldn't probably bring up. So I try to create like I'm having the conversation with him 30 years ago, with his 30 years ago self versus who he is now. And truthfully, what I found is that he finds a lot of value in that, because it keeps his mind fresh on when he was at the heart and maybe not really at the heart, but I would say at the beginning of a lot of great things that was created over the past 30 years. And so I enjoy doing that. But I used to do that with my granddad, so when I was younger, when I was a kid, I would ask him about like all the old bishops that he cared about, the people who mentored him. And he would just give me all these colorful stories about this bishop and that bishop and that. And I was, 10 years old, 15 years old, just gauging these people who he identified. But the only way I could get there is if you can kind of go into your imagination and ask a question to the person you're talking to 30 years prior to where they are, and to have this and allow their brain to go back and engage and as to what was hot for them at that particular time. I tell you, since our last conversation, a couple more people have popped out, and I've added. I hadn't gotten the pictures yet, but I've definitely added them to the list. I think I may have mentioned on the last call that Melody Hobson, who was somebody I hope at some point in my life that I have an opportunity to speak with. She's in her early 50s, early to mid 50s, doing great things with aerial investments. But in this time of really trying to capitalize on this racial equity moment, and I'm going to stop saying moment. I've been saying that, we're in this window where the window may close. And I was on a call yesterday. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop saying that, because if we keep saying it, it will close. And we need to just allow this moment to be a catapult into a lifetime and a societal change of really making equity a real thing, and not that fear that it's only going to happen for a period of time, as we've seen in the past. But her example of changing corporations and the way they approach consumerism and include all socioeconomic backgrounds and people as part of their bringing valuable products to all communities, and not just those who have the highest dollar figure and things like that, and which now creates more opportunities for people who don't have the resources to get good food, to get good products. It takes that type of corporate board type strategic planning to do that. And she has been a pioneer. Well, let me not say a pioneer. She has been an active agent of people like my man who just recently passed away, Vernon Jordan. And it's hard to say that Vernon Jordan has passed away. I'm sitting here looking at his book for those of you who will ultimately see this online. I'm holding up the book, Vernon Jordan. Vernon Can Read, his autobiography that he wrote originally, his first book. And then he wrote a second book called Make It Plain. But Vernon Jordan passed away on March 1st, either March 1st or March 6th, one of the early March. And if you don't know who Vernon Jordan is, Vernon Jordan, back in the late 50s, early 60s, he was one of the young lawyers who was actually helping to end Jim Crow laws. I mean, I think that's and this is kind of a good segue into the topic for today. When I spent the past month just watching, and so many of, after he passed away, so many of his interviews, and he's a brother. They celebrated this brother in the corporate community, in the Black leadership community. Not even just Black leadership. I mean, they did the National Photography, the National Portrait Museum, Smithsonian, did these living portrait series. And so they identify somebody who they would interview, and they would have a living portrait. So it was kind of like give them their flowers while they live. And the story is just so powerful. I mean, it's just, I could go on and on. I would, ask you guys to go to YouTube, type in Vernon Jordan, and just listen to any one of the live interviews that he has given. But the one that really, and actually I'll say this, so over the past, say 4 or 5 years, me, Maria, and Maddie, we've been going to, so Vernon Jordan every year, he'll speak at Rankin Chapel, at Howard, the chapel at Howard University. And we would go see him speak, the past, say 4 or 5 years. And he always he was the last speaker before graduation, the last Sunday before graduation. And so we'd go and see him, and just to be in the room with people who are change agents and have them share whatever they want to talk about, whatever they want to talk about. But one thing about Vernon Jordan and is that he recognized early on that he had to become a change agent, but he wanted to do it in a different way. And so one thing this is the power of imagination and thirst for information, because as I would listen to different stories that he's given, then my mind would start asking questions. And so for instance, he grew up at a housing project right across the street from the Atlanta University Center, and where all the Black colleges are. And that's where he grew up, in the 30s and 40s. And my thought was, well, why didn't he go to one of those schools? And he ended up being, and some of his classmates were other people who I've identified as greats. Actually, who was 2 years ahead of him was H.J. Russell. One of the favorite alumnus of Tuskegee University, and who basically built what we now know as Atlanta downtown. And he was a couple classes ahead of him. But when you look back at this man, it's like at some point in time, he made a decision to be a change agent of progress for Black people. When that light bulb went off, that's what he wanted to commit himself to. I want to be a change agent for progress for Black people. And so then you say, okay, well, great. In what way? Then you say, you go through the process. Do I want to do it in business? I want to do it as a minister? Do I want to do it as a lawyer? Do I want to do it as a nonprofit exec? Whatever. And you just figure out which way you want to do it. And in his way, he said, you know what? I want to be a lawyer. I want to end the laws. I want to end systematic racism from a legal perspective, from a systematic perspective. And his life, he went to Howard Law School, to which he called the West Point of the Civil Rights Movement, where you train young people to go to war to end Jim Crow. That was the objective. We're going to go to Howard Law. We're going to train to end Jim Crow. And then you go wherever it is that you live, or where you want to set up shop. And that's the type of work that you did. You did those type of cases. Well, he took that from getting that law degree to started literally walked in the young sister who was going to the University of Georgia to integrate the University of Georgia right out of college. Ultimately became the national chairman or the national president of UNCF, the United Negro College Fund. Left that job when Whitney Young died. He became the national president of the Urban League. And when he was the national president of the Urban League, it's really when things changed. And so at his funeral, what was so interesting was that Bill Clinton, so a lot of people know Vernon Jordan because he and Bill Clinton were friends. But what was really, Bill Clinton told a story that I think just blew me away. So Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas in the late 70s, early 80s. Was young, and then he lost when Ronald Reagan won the presidency. And so when Ronald Reagan won the presidency, a whole bunch of other Republicans won statewide throughout the country. And they won in Arkansas as well. So he lost. And there had never been kind of a governor who had lost and then came back and won again in Arkansas. So, you know, Bill Clinton was licking his wounds and figuring out, what am I going to do with my life? And this, that, and the other. And Vernon Jordan, who knew Hillary, and that's how he met Bill, through Hillary, called him after he lost, and Vernon Jordan was living in New York. Asked Hillary, do they have some grits? Said, do you guys have any grits and biscuits? He said, okay, well, we don't have it. We can go get some. He flew from New York City to Little Rock, Arkansas, drove to their home, had breakfast with them, gave him his ideas as to how they should move from a political perspective, what you should do next. You do this, you do that, connect with this person, connect with that person. Got back in his car, went back to the airport and flew back to New York after having that breakfast. And the rest was history. You know, literally, you know, Bill Clinton, the next term, and he ran for governor again. He won. He served as governor for 2 terms after that. After that, he ran for president, became president, served 2 terms, you know, and the rest was history after that. And so I think it's this bigger picture of when somebody, you know, when you make a decision as to, and then here's, before I even go to that point, is that Vernon Jordan actually, not long after that conversation, actually got shot. There was an assassination attempt when he was still the president of the of the Urban League. Was in the hospital for 100 days. You know, basically thought he was going to die. Didn't die, but he shifted the work from being to leading the Urban League to serving on corporate boards. And he was the one who really pioneered Black people serving on Fortune 500 corporate boards. And in his view, that was just the next stage of the movement, you know, because he was doing the work as far as the laws were concerned and ending Jim Crow and, you know, making sure that practices that aren't, you know, there's not a lot of inequality going on from a business perspective and a legal perspective. So he said, well, let's take this to the corporations, and became a pioneer in serving on corporate boards and restructuring these corporations. And so it's a great example when you can highlight, identify people who have done that. And he lived a long life. You know, he was 85 years old when he passed last couple weeks ago. But I wanted to highlight Vernon Jordan just as somebody else who is well deserving, I think, especially as we look for examples to help be change agents in this current time that we're living in. So we're right at 8:13, but I wanted to take a second and talk a little bit about, you know, the topic of, you know, actually, here we go. I lost my place here. The work of faith. And I sent the notice out yesterday, which I've been thinking a lot about, and actually Vernon Jordan and some of these other folks, I've been digging in. I'm actually reading, trying to finish up the very comprehensive Barack Obama's new book, The Promised Land. And what's so interesting is that when we start thinking about our own life and what we are faithful to, and it's one thing for us to think about the things that we think we're faithful to. It's another to look at what you're doing every day, which is a proof of what you're faithful to. And so the question is why? You know, that when we look at what you do every day, you know, the wake up when you wake up in the morning and you go through a routine, if that's what you do. If you have a routine and you're doing that every day, you're faithful to that routine for a reason. And the question is, what is the reason? Why do you do this? Some people may say, well, I do it because I have a family and I need to earn money to take care of my family. You can have a whole host of different reasons, but it's at least important to yourself to be able to answer that question. Because if you can't answer that question, then you really, you could very well find yourself questioning, what is all of this about? What is this whole life about anyway? If you can't fully answer that question and feel good about the answer, and now granted, if you answer the question and you don't feel good about the answer, then what does that mean? And now that means you need to do something about it. And the question is, what do you do about it? But I think when we go back to start thinking about faith and the work of faith, I was attracted to a scripture that, for me personally, summed it up. Summed it up and actually made my brain even stretch a little further to think about it. And I just want to kind of share this with you guys, and maybe we can kind of unpack it a little bit personally. And so Hebrew, the 11th chapter, 7th verse. I mentioned to you guys, especially from a studying perspective and studying and leadership perspective, I'm going to share this for you guys who are online. The Maxwell Leadership Bible, which is the John C. Maxwell Leadership Bible. Absolutely great version. These guys, because if you know John C. Maxwell, he's going to connect personal development and leadership and talk about it from the context of the written scripture. So Hebrew 11 and 7. By faith, Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness, which is according to faith. So a couple things that highlighted there as I was reading, that Noah, as we know, Noah built an ark, but he was warned through his faith, through his relationship with God, of things to come. So listen, this is what's getting ready to happen. And even though I know you don't understand what water is, what rain is, this is happening, and it's going to happen. And for Noah, he feared for his family. He thought about his family, like, oh my God, like, so you think about the things that you really care about, and in most cases, we're going to go directly to our family, the people we're responsible for. The people we care about. It's like, well, at the end of the day, I'm about to do this for my people, for my family. I don't know about y'all. I'm going to tell you guys about this. I'm going to tell you that what thus saith the Lord. And it's up to you to decide what you're going to do about it. But this is what I'm doing for my family. And that's where most of us live, right? We're like, man, whatever it takes to be. When this whole pandemic happened, last year this time, I had to quickly go inward. Like I was talking to my sister, and she was like, and she talked to, a family spiritual leader who told her, look, save yourself. That's in the scriptures. and all we can do in these situations is, like, everybody has a different view on what you should do in this pandemic. Oh, freedoms and this, that, oh, okay. If that's what you want to stick to, that, go for it. I'm saving my family. So, and this is what our natural viewpoint is when it comes to the things that matter to us. And so in Noah's case, he's like, listen, all right, I heard him. I'm righteous. I'm staying connected with God. God said this is happening. I'm about to take care of my family. And so he got started building an ark. And that's the crazy part. Like, so when we think about, like, what we're building and the things that we do every day, Why are we doing it? And is it because of this sense of responsibility for our families? Is it something that you're doing out of fear? Is it something that you're doing because of an aspiration? Something that you want to see accomplished, in life? Or is it, so you got to start asking those questions, like, what's making me want to accomplish these things? And so I wanted to kind of highlight something else that John C. Maxwell talked about on this topic of the work of faith. And so he talks about vision, seeing the invisible. And he says in Hebrews 11 is often called the hall of faith because it enshrines men and women of faith who triumphed in their own lifetimes. The passage summarizes an initial list of heroes with the word about vision. It is almost impossible to separate faith and vision. It's almost impossible to separate faith and vision. I want to stop there for a second, because when you think about, a lot of times we have kind of the very practical people who only believe what they see right now. And if it's in front of your face, then that's what we got to deal with. There's the other group of people who look deep into the future, and which calls for imagination, which calls for communication with God to be able to see into the future, to be able to understand, and not even just understand it, but to recognize that there's something coming, and then to be able to start putting the tea leaves together in whatever form that takes. Is if you don't have vision, then it's extremely difficult to have faith. So it's like if you, and I want to just kind of mention and stay there for a second, because if we are, like, why is faith important? And faith is from my perspective, faith helps me to not worry, to not have fear, and to not doubt. And when you can eliminate those three things from your psyche, just take a step back and think about that. If you can eliminate fear, worry, and doubt at all times from your psyche, from your thought process, then think about the things that you would do that you're not doing right now. And so just kind of take that in for a second, because at the end of the day, if we have these goals, but which is greater, the fear, the worry, and the doubt? The fear that you won't accomplish it, the fear if you start doing this, it's going to stop something else, the worry, the ongoing thinking about it. Is that greater than your will and your want to accomplish something that you think is important for you? So that relationship between faith and vision is extremely important as we continue to work on these objectives, these things that are powerful to us, things that really matter to us. It's so important to connect those dots. And you can answer that question for yourself. Am I really able to see into the future? Where is my faith at this moment? And so he highlights vision as they saw the promises from afar off. These leaders had power for today because they had a vision for tomorrow. Think about what these guys we're talking about here. Vernon Jordan, I didn't even mention, these other books that I had sitting here, like, Thurgood Marshall. This is another guy, who inspired the Vernon Jordans of the world. To say, I'm committed to ending Jim Crow. But as of today, Jim Crow is, in their lifetime, Jim Crow is real. And matter of fact, I'm probably going to die trying to do this. But I am committed case by case. If you followed Thurgood Marshall's life and his cases, this man he just crisscrossed the country. and finding cases that would allow them to build a resume of ending segregation, the ending inequalities, ending the Jim Crow laws on the books from one case to another. And the only way that he could commit himself to that was to say, my life's work is to do this in Jim Crow, one case at a time. So the power for him to do that, to give him the energy to work on that date. And we hadn't really talked about what it takes to, especially during that lifetime. I mean, there's so many different movies and things that try to depict it, but the amount of scrutiny, I was just, I on a more personal level, I sit here and watch just the level of ongoing attacks, my Tuskegee sister, Marilyn Mosby, is going through right now, all because she is committed to progress in prosecution. Say, oh, you bucking the system? This is what you do as a prosecutor. You do this, that, and the other. And if you go outside of that, we will ruin you. And that's exactly what is happening real time. And so it's one thing for us to read stories about people who were going through and doing these things in their lifetime, but we were able to see the finished product. With Thurgood Marshall becoming the Chief Justice in the Supreme Court. We were able to see that happen. But when it was happening in real time, I mean, imagine all the Black folks who were like, man, this dude crazy. You can't be doing this, man. They're going to kill you, man. Like, you can't do this. If you keep doing this, this is bucking the system. Can't buck the system because they didn't have his type of vision. These were people who weren't, they were fearful. And so it's interesting when you can read about these stories about people who've done it. We talk about people, you say the word Martin Luther King now, he was as if he was forever, just the greatest man during his lifetime. During his lifetime, not only did most white people did not like him, most Black folks didn't like this man because they saw him as a rebel rouser who was creating issues, who was just going to agitate the communities, that's going to create more issues. They weren't on board. It went until the man died, and now we saw his finished product, and they connected the dots, and now and pumping out a story of all these different pieces, and now it's a finished product that's being marketed out for it to change the mindset over the generations, which, I mean, we love that, but we have to be true to when we look at people who are being change agents today and the type of scrutiny they receive and trying to, because they're going against the norm. And I'm just saying this to you because, one, whenever you are really willing to commit yourself to something that is probably against the grain, be very well prepared to be on an island by yourself, and nobody else is willing to support what you're trying to do, which is why it's so important to have these advisors who you can connect with, who you can learn from, who can counsel you in the middle of your commitment to your life, because that's really what this is about. It's really about you being committed to the work in your lifetime. Nobody else knows what your goals and what God has called you to do. And so when you get busy about that work and people don't understand what you're doing, and then they may hate you, they may say all kinds of stuff against you, you're going to need that counsel, that support, that resource to be energized and get back in the game and to be enlightened and to see into the future. And so you're going to need all of that. So it's just the work of faith. It's one thing to say you have it. It's another thing to say that you want it, but then the work to what does it really mean to be faithful, to become righteous to the cause, to come, because actually in that, and this is a different version. I think in this version of the Bible, I think it's the New King James Version, but I read another version of it that talked about faith, the work of faith as righteousness, meaning it's just you've committed to what the work is. So because you've committed and you've become consistent at it, then you're righteous. You're righteously a part of that faithful objective. And so before we finish up here, I just want to read a couple other things that just, these things just made me do a couple backward flips. So we talked about vision, and they saw the promises from afar off. The leaders had power for today because they had a vision for tomorrow. Confidence, they were assured of the promises. They remained optimistic because they wanted to make a legacy more than a living. They wanted to make a legacy more than a living. Hunger, they embraced the promises. They had ownership of what only their descendants would enjoy. Resolve, they confessed they were strangers and pilgrims. They made up their minds. Their dreams, not their memories, consumed them. And so this is just kind of an example. He's highlighting these faithful people in the book. And this chapter talks about a bunch of them. I just kind of highlighted the 7th verse on the 11th chapter, 7th verse, which highlights Noah's work. But, this life is just really, in many cases, I think it's difficult for a lot of people. And I have this conversation a lot with prospective clients and financial planning and people who have, amassed wealth and doing great work. But they have committed themselves to, they've committed themselves to the work that they enjoy. And when you can bring value to the marketplace by committing yourself to the work that you enjoy, the amount of money and things and all of that kind of stuff you'll become overwhelmed with it to the place where when you start looking at your standard of living and how much it costs to just live the best life that you want to live, and you realize you don't have enough. Like, you don't even know how to, you don't have enough in your mind to spend, because your value to the marketplace, when you stay committed to, especially in business, when you stay committed to what it is that you believe is everything for you, that the work that you're here to do, money is not part of it. It's not even a factor. So it just goes back to, are we being faithful to the work that we believe we're here to do? And being, and trying to stay simplistic. When I say simplistic, meaning that here's my one objective. Yeah, there's a lot of things encompassed with that. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen with that. But here's my objective. And here recently, I found myself in rooms that, I couldn't have dreamed of being in 2-3 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. But now you're in the room. So now that you're in there, what's your objective? What role will you play in furthering the objective of progress for the things and the people that matter to you? That's the question I ask myself. What's my objective here? And be quick and honest about it. So people, there's no ambiguity here as it relates to what this person's objective is. So I just wanted to share that. I wanted to share that as we continue to talk about the work of faith. I would say for the month of March, for me, it's been a consistent month, and just as we started this year with goals, with objectives, and I've had a lot of, things thrown at me to try to throw me off message and maybe try to create some worry. But I'm just I'm thankful because the consistency has kept me on message. The work is too important to get off message. And on top of that, to be able to clearly communicate with those distractions to say, let me help you with something else, because that's not for me to help with, but maybe we can connect you with somebody else. And so you can stay in your lane, because once you get pulled out, then there's no power there when you get pulled outside of your core work, what we used to call your calling, so you got to stay connected to what it is, the work that you're here to do. So that's what I got. And so we got 8:35. Anybody have any questions, comments, things they'd like to share? Let's take a second. We'll open up the call now. So I do have a couple books. And I did mention Vernon Can Read. Highly recommend Vernon Can Read. That story in and of itself, is why did he name his autobiography Vernon Can Read? That in and of itself is in the first chapter of the book. So I'm not even going to tell you, but you got to read the first chapter of the book to learn that. And it's just man, I tell you, my family is from the state of Georgia. My dad's from Georgia. My grandparents are from Georgia. And and so in reading his story and during the time period was just so important to me. And just being able to kind of understand and connect the dots. Just a great book. I'll go on rambling forever talking about Vernon Jordan. Another great book, Young Thurgood. And now this was written by a living legend, Larry Gibson, who just celebrated his 79th birthday, I guess yesterday or day before yesterday. Larry Gibson, Attorney Gibson here in Baltimore. Here's a man, Larry Gibson is a man who, he's just one of them brothers that, we need to celebrate him, and celebrate the work that he is doing and has done. But I can tell you, he's somebody who in the generations to come, there are going to be a lot of books written about Larry Gibson and the work that he's done here in Maryland as an attorney. He really fits in the vein of the Thurgoods and Vernon Jordan's. But he wrote this book about young Thurgood, the making of Supreme Court Justice. Absolutely great book. Highly recommended. And thank you to Larry Gibson for just being the revolutionary intellectual that he is. And I think that's all I had. Anybody else, before we finish up today, have any questions or comments? Really thankful for this call today. We'll take a second and open up the call now.
Hey, Byron, it's Bonnie. Can you hear me?
What's up?
What up, though? Anyway, I just want to send a shout out to Pat Mark. He got me out bed. Because he out there in the cold.
That's
like Michael B. Jordan. Well, you're quite welcome. Yeah, imagine me. Exactly. Bonnie. Oh, I'm so tired. You know this, but I had to take a pause so I could send a shout out to my brother Pat Mark. That's because he got me going. I was sitting there talking myself out of it. Because my plan, Byron, for you all, my plan was to do something active every day for 66 days, and I fell off real hard in the month of March. And I want to send a shout out to my brother Dwayne Mitchell for calling me out and saying, yeah, somebody get it together.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who need somebody to encourage you and get you going and keep you in the behind, if health and fitness is your thing, the brothers on this call are the ones that help. This is my time to you guys is crazy, and I appreciate you all. I'm gone.
And what, you know what? I'm glad you said that, Bonnie, because so that goes back to, and this is, I'm glad you said it, because early at the beginning of the year, we talked about the mind, body, and soul. And so for me, when I say consistency, it just means that the stuff that we started earlier is continuing. It hadn't stopped yet. And you know, we have our little text message, our health team that's focusing on the body, and everybody's updating each other as to what they're doing right now. Paz is on that team, Dwayne's on that team, Gary Best, Bonnie, and myself, and we've been plugging in. So if y'all want to join in, you know, but again, listen, let me just say this, and Bonnie can tell you, you know, if you join this text group, because every day we're binging something, we're showing somebody's showing what they've done, and you're not doing anything, you're gonna probably get upset, and you're gonna say, "Hey, can you remove me from this group?" So I'm telling you, that's exactly what's gonna happen. I'm gonna tell you now, so that lets you know if you should ask me to add you to that group or not. Because if you don't have a plan about your activity, it doesn't matter what your activity is, you just got to report it, right? You set a goal and then report what your goal is, you know, where you are in that. And, you know, but yeah, if you ain't doing nothing, you're going to say, hey, I need you to take me off this group. So, because these boys are focused, man, they keep me on it. So, and we're all at different stages. I'm not doing all the stuff that they're doing some stuff that I'm not ready for yet. But I'll show you what I'll show you what I'm ready to do, and I'm gonna stay consistent to what I'm ready to do. And I'll make some upgrades, you know. But so, all right, Tassan, I just saw your text. I just saw your text. So listen. If you want me to do this, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna add it today. So, all right, we're gonna have an addition to our body group. All right. So let's do it. Yeah. So I'm glad you shared that, Bonnie, because we've been on it every day, checking them steps. So, all right. Anybody else? All right. Well, that's just.
I do have two things.
Okay.
You know with me? I got two things. One is just a fun book that I picked up on Audible that it's called, and it was I thought it was going to be like helpful to the whole process of picking a person and not picking the people, which it kind of has been. I did forget to mention Michael Jordan, but I mean he goes without saying.
Yeah.
He's definitely on the list. It's Aaron, you know. However, it's by Jim Gray, and it's called Talking to Ghosts. It's called Talking to Ghosts by Jim Gray. Now I know Jim Gray from being kind of that agitating boxing guy that's always asking those hard questions, those random questions at the end of a fight, and you don't really like them. But once I got into his book, and I haven't made it through, he has a very, very interesting story, and his relationship with these athletes, and other sportscasters, everybody from Muhammad Ali to John Madden, that I've heard so far has been. It's been super. It's a sports person, and I don't claim to be Mr. ESPN by any means, but I'm there for the big stuff, and I like who I like. But I find that I found it very interesting, and it's entertaining, and it gives you some different insights instead of I try to you leave slavery, you with Frederick Douglass, and he fights slavery and getting in the fights and actually throwing hands at a rally in Cincinnati, you know what I'm saying? And then you just got to fall back from that. Like, okay, let me just. And Jim Gray book has been very, fun and interesting about stuff that's happened from his perspective and inside perspective. So,
yeah.
Book, if you're looking for something sports-wise, just to listen to, Talking to Ghosts. And friends Tom Brady and all that kind of stuff. It's good. It's just good.
Interesting. Okay.
Fun to listen to. Yeah, Talking to Ghosts. It's real good. And again, you can perspective of Jim Gray, because I really didn't like him before because he's kind of a prick. Why now? I mean, he is. He describes himself that way. Because he has to ask those tough questions.
Yeah.
Right after a fight. Why did you think that you were going to not get hit with that hook?
like, what? Yeah.
But yeah, I think what he's like, it's a good book. It's something to put on the list. Something to find on the list.
Okay.
So,
and I did want to. Oh yeah, go ahead, Teresa. Oh,
that's a banger. That is a banger. Wow.
Outwitting the Devil. That's a great one. Yeah. Paz and I probably about, let's say maybe about 8 years ago, I think we went through a strong 2 years of just devouring any Napoleon Hill work, like anything he had access to. Like, oh, did you read it? I mean, just like all the secret stuff that didn't come out, we found those and got it into. So, and we, all the conspiracy theory, that's the reason why it didn't come out. We went and got the original text, like, Oh yeah, that one is a good one. Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And then I also want to mention to you guys, part of this kind of, when I talk about this consistency piece, we talk about books, but listen, man, get Audible, get the Audible app, get the book, listen to it while you're doing whatever you do, walk, drive, whatever you're doing, that little in-between period, get the book, get the information in, get the information in. That's what, I got a lot of books here, and I'm still trying to find a nice way to present it because they're all over the place. I'm trying not to become like trying to stay in good graces with my wife. So, but they all over the place. So, but it's the information. But how can we stay connected with these people if we don't get it in? And if we say, well, I don't have time to read. Well, you better get the Audible app and get that information in your ears while you're working out or whatever you're doing, because this is just the work, I mean, I don't even know what else to say. But I need to stop. I'm glad you guys are kind of carving out these details because I can't just use the word. March was a consistent month for me, and I'm kind of mad that I did that because I didn't unpack it. Well, what does that mean, Byron? That it was consistent, especially for the people who call for the first time. And consistent means to this mind, body, and soul initiative. That what are we doing to feed the mind? What are we doing to feed the body? And what are we doing to feed our spirit? And keeping that fresh at the top 3 things on your mind all day. And knowing when something is going to attack it. Each of the 3. When you are putting yourself in a position that those 3 things, the progress of your mind, body, and spirit is being attacked, then what do you do about that? What's your remedy? And we have to have that stuff prepared, because if we don't, if we don't have a protection around what we're trying to accomplish every day, we're not going to make any progress. This whole network is about progress. That's exactly what this whole thing is about. Going from where you are to where you want to be. And asking yourself, how did you, even when you talk about with a want, well, what's motivating that want? Like, why do you want that? Is this some godly inspired want since you were born, or you epiphany, or because you saw somebody else do it who's a part of your advisory group, or to unpack all of this stuff? So we're staying on the real message. We talk about, when we were playing football back as kids, and my coach, he said, practice don't make you perfect. Perfect practice makes you perfect. Because if you practicing the wrong thing, you practicing the wrong thing every day. And some of us practice the wrong thing every day. And we expect to become perfect. So we have to figure out what is perfect practice. So get the Audible app, get that information in your system. Make sure you get in the books. That's going to help add value to progressing your objectives. Get that stuff in you. And listen, if you say, well, I don't have time, you got to make time. Is that other stuff more important? Like, what I'm saying? Like, at some point, you just got to be like, is this other stuff really more important? Or is whatever is consuming my time actually helping me get to accomplish my goals? And if it's not, then you got to replace it. Well, we had that one initiative that went remove and replace. You got to remove that stuff that's not helping you get there and replace it with the right stuff. So we're 2 hours in, man, and I got this Tuskegee call here in 10 minutes. We're doing our annual scholarship breakfast. It's virtual this year, so I'm not all suited and booted, but I do need to do something because we're going to show our faces on this thing. And I don't want to embarrass my people. So, or be embarrassed because they would call me out. So we're going to finish up. Anybody have any questions or comments before we finish up for the day? All right. Delta Sigma Theta. I heard it. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself, and we will see you next month. See you soon. Be safe.